So in this video, we're going to plot a screenplay old school. So that's no computers, no iPads, no jiggery pokery gizmos of any kind whatsoever. This is prehistoric, this is Neanderthal, this is caveman drawing on a wall with something, I don't know, we might use a pen. Hi and welcome to this caveman tutorial, and we say caveman because we are going to be drawing on this, not a cave wall, in this case my garage wall, and we're not going to be drawing with some incisor of a saber tooth, but we're going to be using these wipe clean markers. Now the interesting thing about this is there is absolutely no computers involved, so there's no software. Apart from the lighting, really, there's no electricity. That's one reason why you think, why would you have this in a garage as opposed to maybe an office? And of course, yep, they're great to have in an office, but one thing that's really good about this space is the fact that there are no distractions, although I apologise about the fact that we have a little bit of traffic noise. It's not brilliant for filming. So this is a whiteboard. It's been with me for years. It's a bit of an old soldier. It's been in different houses and offices, and is a bit past its best, but I do love it because it's a fantastic piece of kit. As well as being a whiteboard, it is also magnetic, so it's one of the magnetic kinds. We're going to come on to why that's hugely important in a second. So what we've seen mapped out here is the classic act structure. So 3 acts, 1, 2 and 3. We're doing this based on a screenplay, but you could still do it equally with novels and short stories. So in this case, we've got a 120-minute screenplay divided by 30 minutes for Act 1, 60 minutes for Act 2, and 30 minutes for Act 3. It's then broken down into the 6 key story beats, which we can see here, and then it's broken down still further into the 8 sequences, the 8 15-minute themed sequences. We have the protagonist or hero's story arc here, and reflected against that, always hugely important, is the antagonist's story arc as well, because the relationship between the two is vital. One thing that happens to one has an impact on the other. So the midpoint, the high point of the story for the protagonist is the low point for the antagonist. First act is the status quo. The second act is the adventure itself, the sort of the canvas, if you like, that the majority of the sort of real story is told on, and then the resolution and climax in Act 3. So I'm not going to dwell too much on structure. There is another video on explaining this structure, and also if you want the this is a black and white copy, but if you want the sort of electronic version of this as a companion guide to stick on your notice board in your office, then go to www.clickimagination.com, and in the downloads you'll see you can get a copy of this for free. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the structure. The principle here is about using this canvas. What's really great about this size is how imposing and kind of, as I said, primeval. It kind of the size of it is absorbing. It draws you in. Okay, I mean, when you think of it, you might have a notepad at home and it's only going to be this sort of size. Here, your second act is sort of shoulder width. You know, it's big. You can kind of get into that story and really see it visually, how it follows, and you've got all this space. And then what you do is you could start with acts, what's going to happen roughly in Act 1, what's going to happen in Act 2, and kind of just be very loose. You don't have to, it doesn't have to follow the key beats to start with. You can just simply put some ideas on, and as you go through, what's great about these boards is you can sort of make some scribbles about things. I think the resolution is going to be somewhere over here, and I'm going to have a showdown in, you know, a desert fortress or something like that. And maybe you get, no, actually I'm not going to have the desert fortress over here. I might put the desert fortress here instead and have it as part of the first part of the third act. So you have the scope to be able to start to move things around and change a note that you put over here for a scene, as I say, to a scene that might well fit here. Now, the one thing I'm just going to touch on with structure, which is worth noting in this context, is hope and fear. Now, the reason that this is important when you are setting out your scenes is that the first half of Act 2, the audience hopes that the hero will succeed on their mission and their objective, and then they fear in the second half of Act 2 that they're going to fail. So this part is usually about training, it's about meeting the team, it's about understanding the world of the story, and then the mirrored side of that is about losing the team, not knowing enough about the world of the story or the rules of the story, etc. Again, I'm not going to get into too deep about structure, but the reason I mention it is when you start to create the scenes that are fitting within here, if you've got something about your hero learning something here for the first time, if it's a skill and it creates some optimism, it's in conflict with this fear that you want to generate in the audience. So you might want to place it as part of the act, the first half of the second act, etc. So you start to shift around these notes. I'm losing them all over the floor, and you scribble down scene ideas, and it becomes this patchwork of ideas. So it might be, when am I going to meet the when's he going to meet the girlfriend, the love interest, or when's she, who's the hero, going to meet the love interest? Where is it going to fit on this line? How do the scenes relate to the general structure as we are navigating through it? And then wonderfully, as a canvas, what you can do then is use it as a mind mapping exercise. You can take things that you think are really interesting. I just want to keep that there as a discussion for the high point. I've got a great picture of somebody who would potentially be an antagonist, so that could be a scene in there. Can be a description of some young actor out of getting an awards or something. You might want to stick it in that side. There might be just some general notes that you picked up, something to do with the showdown or the scene or whatever, and you might get something and go, wow, there needs to be a desert scene. I would love a desert scene. Okay, maybe the showdown, the actual climax itself is set up in the desert. So what you can do, once you're mapping all this out, is you get your phone out, you photograph it, you can wipe it, you can start again, and slowly you start to build this structure. Now, this is a 1.8 by 1.2 meters high, so it's a pretty big monster, but you don't need one this size. You can get away with one a bit smaller. You know, they do a half size one if you don't have space. As well as in the garage, I've got a whiteboard in the office, which is probably about half the size of this, which is also pretty good. I mean, one of the negatives about a garage is, of course, you open the garage door, suddenly the notes of your first act have blown over onto your workbench. But what is great about this space, as I say, is that there's nobody else here. So try and put it somewhere where there isn't the internet and there isn't eBay, and your phone's not going to go off, or the kids aren't going to run around and start to pester you. You know, here we've got like an office away from the office. Apart from the traffic noise, it's pretty quiet. It's a great place to focus. There's even a toilet, so there's everything you could possibly need. Maybe a fridge for some beers, that would be worthwhile. So you've got a broad enough canvas to play with. If you, as I say, if you don't have enough space for it to actually physically put it on a wall. You can just get one and then still hide it behind the wardrobe or whatever. But they're a really good tool for a writer. If you don't have this, if you don't have the space, these aren't cheap either. I can't remember what this costs because it's so old, but it might be 100 quid. If you don't have the cost for it, dining room table, children's art paper, you get these rolls, pen, draw the same grid on, post-it notes, sellotape the images on, and roll the thing up when you've done with it, and roll it out when you want to use it. That's another perfectly workable solution. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you've got any comments about whether or not you use a similar system or whether you use something that is cleverer than this, stick some comments below. We'd love to hear how you manage it, because this is about sharing information. This is not the only way and the right way to do it. It just simply works for me. So I'd be interested to hear about how you as writers get on as well, because after all, we're all writers and we're all just trying to get a bit better. Please take some time to like and subscribe. It's great to know that these videos are actually being watched and are appreciated, because otherwise why would we do them? Alright, that's it. That's enough waffle from me. Thanks again for your time, and we'll see you in the next video. Lovely.